Why you should read for fun. Many students ask why they should read in English. They go to classes, do homework, and watch English movies, so why read books? Reading is the best way to learn English. Let me explain why. First, reading skills are more important than ever, whether in English or your native language. In 2006, only 1 out of 100 people went to university. Now it's 7 out of 100. All jobs, especially office jobs, require more reading and writing than a century ago. Competition is tougher, and readers win. Second, reading improves all your English skills. It helps you with vocabulary, writing, grammar, and even understanding spoken English. While it doesn't directly improve listening skills, it gives you the words you need, which helps with listening practice. But we're not talking about boring school textbooks and stories with exercises. We're talking about reading for fun. You read a book because you enjoy it, not because a teacher told you to. You might think, that sounds good, but English books are too difficult for me. I get bored and give up quickly. That's why I wrote this book. It's designed to make you love reading, with fun stories that are easy to understand. The stories gradually become more challenging so you can see your progress and feel successful. If you're still not convinced, let me share my experience. In 2017, I wanted to learn Spanish but wasn't making much progress in traditional classes. I decided to read 1,000,000 words in Spanish, which is about 20 novels. It was a big challenge. I started with very easy books like this one. Then, I read books I knew in English like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, but in Spanish. Finally, I read new Spanish books by authors like Isabel Allende, Jorge Luis Borges, and Manuel Puig. I also listened to podcasts but focused mainly on reading. After reading 1,000,000 words, I could write and speak to native Spanish speakers at an intermediate level. I could understand almost everything I read and follow conversations if people spoke clearly. I learned more in 1 year than in 5 years of traditional classes. And I didn't try to memorize grammar or vocabulary. I learned them naturally through reading. You might think, I can't read for hours every day. But the important thing is to read books that are easy and fun. If a book is too difficult or boring, put it down and find another one. Language expert Stephen Krashen says to read things in English that are enjoyable and interesting. Read very simple books like comics, magazines, spy stories, and romance novels. Don't be ashamed of reading children's books. If you read many simple books, you'll understand them easily and won't need a dictionary. So what's easy? Research shows you should understand at least 98% of a text. I know that sounds high, but let's look at an example. Here's a text with 10% made-up words. Example with 10% fake words. Jerry went out of bed and opened the curtains. He shook himself by breakfast. He made enough and put on his puff. Someone called on his phone and he picked up the phone. He was very surprised by the caller. His wins fell to the ground. Example with 2% fake words. Jerry went out of bed and opened the curtains. He shook himself by breakfast. He made enough and put on his toast. Someone called on his phone and he picked up the phone. He was very surprised by the caller. His wins fell to the ground. You probably didn't understand everything in the first text, but the second one was easier. That's why reading for fun is so wonderful. You may not understand every word, but you'll understand enough to enjoy the story without needing a dictionary. If this book seems too hard, find something easier. If it's boring, find something more fun. Not everyone will like my writing, and that's okay. Find a book you enjoy. When we enjoy reading, we learn more. Because I want this book to be enjoyable, there are no exercises in it. I thought about adding some after every story, but I don't think that's the best use of your time. Instead, you should just read more, read for fun. When you finish this book, you can try a more challenging one. By then, you'll have read many stories and improved your understanding naturally. By the time you finish, you might fall in love with the stories. Hope so. If you want more, listen to my podcast, English Spoken Stories. I write a new story every week with audio and text, and there are over 100 episodes for you to enjoy. Read with joy and learn with joy. Why reading books is important at the early levels. Many students often ask, why should we read in English? We attend classes, do our homework, and watch movies in English. So why read books? Well, reading is the best way to improve your English. Let me explain why. First, reading is very important. In 2006, only 1 out of 100 people went to university. Now, 7 out of 100 people go to university. All jobs require more reading and writing skills than they did 100 years ago. This applies to everyone, whether you are an office worker or a mechanic. Secondly, reading will improve your speaking, writing, vocabulary, and grammar. It won't improve any other way as effectively. It might not directly improve your listening skills, but it will expand your vocabulary, making it easier to understand spoken English. In school, you might have read a lot of English, probably boring books and stories with exercises at the end. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about reading for fun. This means you read because you enjoy it. You're not reading because your teacher told you to. You're not reading because you think you should. You're reading because you love it. In 1965, an experiment was done in schools in the US with boys who had committed crimes. They gave some boys fun books like James Bond novels and told them they didn't have to read them. But guess what? The boys read them. Some boys read a book every 2 days. After 2 years, they tested the students. Those who got books improved in reading and writing and liked school more. Those who didn't get books didn't improve, and some even got worse. This isn't just for native speakers. In Fiji, students learning English were tested in 3 ways. One group did regular English classes with grammar and exercises. The second group read books silently. The third group listened to the teacher read books. After a year, the groups that read books did much better than the regular class group. In Singapore, silent readers did great on grammar tests compared to those who did traditional grammar classes. In regular classes, we try to memorize grammar and vocabulary. When we read, we learn them naturally. You might think reading in English is too hard. You need a dictionary all the time. It's boring. You can't do it. Understand. That's why I wrote this book. I think you'll love reading it because the stories are easy and fun. The first stories are short and easy, and later stories are longer and harder. When you finish the book, you'll think, wow, I did it. I also have a podcast called English Spoken Stories. 9 stories in this book were written for the podcast. 1 story was written just for this book, and I improved all the stories when making this book. Now you can read these stories at beginner, pre-intermediate, intermediate, or advanced levels. All the stories are fairy tales. Some are very famous and some are not. One is even written by me. Maybe you're thinking, fairy tales? Those are for kids. I need to learn useful words for business and science. This can't be fun. Actually, the vocabulary in these stories will be useful. McCann did an experiment with 22 novels and found that 85% of the words were on academic word lists needed for university. Rolls and Rogers found that reading 1,000,000 words of science fiction helps you learn important scientific words for university. But I understand if you're still skeptical. When I learned about all this, I found it hard to believe too, but I love trying new things and learning languages. In 2017, I decided to experiment. I had wanted to learn Spanish for a long time but didn't learn much in regular classes. I decided to read 1,000,000 words in Spanish. That's about 20 novels, so it was a lot of work. I started with very easy books like this one. Then I read translations of books I knew in English like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Finally, I read new books in Spanish by Latin American authors like Isabel Allende, Luis Jorge Borges, and Manuel Puig. I love these authors. I also listen to podcasts, but always read the transcripts and included them in my goal. After reading 1 million words, I could almost understand everything I read. I could understand people when they spoke clearly, and I could have conversations. Most of my learning came from reading, not speaking. In 1 year, I learned more than I had in 5 years of traditional study. I didn't try to memorize grammar and vocabulary. I learned them naturally. Maybe you're thinking, I don't believe it. Or I'm going to read for hours every day. Here's a crucial tip. Read books that are easy and fun. If a book is too hard or boring, find another one. Language expert Stephen Krashen suggests reading only what's enjoyable and interesting. Read easy stuff, comics, magazines, detective stories, romance novels. Don't be ashamed to read translations. When you read very easy books, you understand new words from the context without needing a dictionary. Easy means understanding at least 98% of the words in a text. Here's an example. Jerry got out of bed and began to open the curtains. He hummed to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and spread butter on his fur. Someone called him on his phone and he answered. He was very surprised by the caller, and his winky fell to the floor. Can you read a whole book like this? Now, here's the same text with only 2% fake words. Jerry got out of bed and began to open the curtains. He hummed to himself as he made breakfast. He made coffee and spread butter on his toast. Someone called him on his phone and he answered. He was very surprised by the caller, and his winky fell to the floor. Much easier, right? That's why reading for fun is so powerful. You might not understand everything, but you get enough to follow the story without constantly reaching for a dictionary. So, if this book feels too hard, find something easier. If it's boring, find something more fun. Not everyone will love my writing, and that's okay. Find a book that's right for you. When we enjoy ourselves, we learn more. This book has no exercises because I want it to be fun. Instead of exercises, read more for pleasure. If you finish this book, try the next level. You already know the stories, so understanding will be easier. By the time you finish, you might fall in love with the stories. Hope so. If you want more, listen to my podcast, English Spoken Stories. I write a new story every week with audio and text, and there are over 100 episodes to enjoy. Read with joy and learn with joy. The impact of reading on language learning. To further emphasize the importance of reading, let's delve into the broader impact it has on language learning. Reading not only enhances your linguistic skills but also broadens your perspective and enriches your imagination. The cognitive benefits of reading. Reading is a mental exercise that sharpens your mind. When you read, your brain processes new information, creates mental images, and links concepts, all of which enhance cognitive function. This mental engagement helps improve concentration, analytical thinking, and problem-solving skills. Vocabulary and comprehension. The more you read, the more words you are exposed to. This continuous exposure helps you understand and remember new vocabulary effortlessly. Reading contextually rich materials like novels, articles, and essays allows you to see how words are used in different situations, making it easier to grasp their meanings and nuances. Reading for pleasure versus academic reading. While academic reading is essential for mastering specific subjects, reading for pleasure provides a different kind of learning experience. It is less structured and more enjoyable, allowing you to explore a wide range of topics and genres at your own pace. This freedom encourages a deeper connection with the material, making learning more effective and enjoyable. The role of storytelling in learning. Storytelling is a powerful educational tool. Stories are memorable because they connect with our emotions. When you read stories, you engage with the characters, plot, and setting, making the learning experience more immersive. This emotional engagement helps reinforce the language concepts you are learning, making them easier to recall. Building empathy and cultural awareness. Reading books from different cultures and perspectives helps build empathy and cultural awareness. It exposes you to diverse experiences and viewpoints, fostering a better understanding of the world around you. This cultural literacy is invaluable in today's globalized society. Encouraging lifelong learning. Developing a habit of reading encourages lifelong learning. It instills a curiosity and love for knowledge that extends beyond the classroom. Lifelong learners are more adaptable and open to new ideas, which is crucial in a rapidly changing world. Practical tips for effective reading. Choose the right materials. Start with books that match your current language level and interest. Gradually move to more challenging texts as your skills improve. Set realistic goals. Set achievable reading goals to maintain motivation. This could be a certain number of pages per day or finishing a book by a specific date. Use audiobooks and podcasts. Complement your reading with audiobooks and podcasts. Listening to native speakers helps improve pronunciation and listening skills. Join a reading group. Joining a reading group can provide additional motivation and a sense of community. Discussing books with others can enhance your understanding and enjoyment of the material. Keep a reading journal. Maintain a journal to record new vocabulary, summaries of what you've read, and personal reflections. This practice reinforces what you've learned and tracks your progress. Conclusion. Reading is not just a tool for language learning. It is a gateway to a richer, more informed life. By choosing to read for fun, you are investing in your personal and intellectual growth. Whether you are just starting your language journey or looking to improve your skills, reading offers endless opportunities for learning and enjoyment. Remember, the key is to find materials that you enjoy and that challenge you just enough to keep you engaged. Happy reading!